Hello, this is Father David here on the fourth Friday of Great Lent. And the reading today is from Isaiah. It is a reading that Father Stephen mentions where God expresses his displeasure with those who claim to be his, even though their hearts are far away. He does not desire worship by rote. And there's the words of the prophets that say, I despise your fasts and your liturgies. If you were speaking to us, in our current lingo today, because you do not keep in mind the plight of the poor. And your hearts are far from me, and yet we approach with our prayers. And it's a sober reminder that when we come to particularly the Holy Eucharist, but also our confessions, our Lenten confessions, our participation in our prayers at home, we will never be worthy of any of this. But as St. Paul says, we have to approach in a worthy manner. And this is what we are called to. And those are the words of St. Paul, to participate in a worthy manner of the sacramental life of the Church. And that is mainly just to realize our need to come humbly, and as we said in a previous video, poor in spirit, that we would say the prayers of preparation before Holy Communion, that we would go to confession as needed, that we would have a heart tender before the Lord to see what it is that we have done that has distanced us from God. Father Stephen's meditation, which is the part that I'll read today, is very honest, and it's worth considering within our own lives. And this priest of the Church, this man who served the Church faithfully for many years, throughout many personal trials and difficulties and doubts and disappointments that he shared with me during seminary. He says this: many aspects of the Orthodox liturgical life, with its structure and ritual, are the very things that so easily lead us away from true worship. And then he says, in today's reading from Isaiah, God expresses his displeasure with those who claim to be his, even though their hearts are far from him, far away. He does not desire worship by rote. And then he continues, the words of church prayers and the liturgy are so familiar to me that I breeze through them without contemplation. With little feeling and little thought, I hurriedly repeat prayers without stilling my heart in order to hear what God is saying to me. I treat the sacraments carelessly. I approach Holy Confession by measuring myself against my neighbor, thereby seeing myself favorably instead of viewing myself against the stature of Christ. I habitually come week after week to Holy Communion without preparation, failing to recognize the consuming fire to which I draw near. I am equally careless about holy things. When I hear admonishments about proper church behavior, I say to myself, this doesn't apply to me. Perhaps to the person on the other side of the church, but not to me. God desires me to worship him with an attentive and willing heart. I see myself, however, casually going through the motions of my faith. Let me allow God's Spirit to touch and guide my life of worship. I remember one time in our parish prior to seminary, a man went up to communion. was a regular member of the parish, and I noticed this time that he was crying. And he took communion with tears streaming down his face, and he said something to the priest, and the priest nodded, and he nodded. And I asked this man afterwards, would you mind sharing? What was it? And it was during Lent. And he said, well, Father just said for me to read the anaphora prayers of Saint Basil out just calmly and consciously to myself. And I did. And they were beautiful. And it showed what all God's done for me. And so by being more attentive and more purposeful in approaching the sacraments, he was able to experience a heartfelt and joyful and grateful, humble reception of the Eucharist. So let us, in this time entering the 5th week, close to, of Great Lent, let us be as purposeful as we can so that we would respect and treat with respect the sacraments of the Church, and that we would prepare ourselves to participate in a worthy manner of the gifts of our Christ. God bless you. Lord willing, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.